A thin veil of December mist settled over the sidewalks of Queens, softening the usual morning chaos. Cars honked in the distance, a dog barked somewhere behind a chain-link fence, and a woman's laughter floated out from a laundromat. Life churned on, unaware that someone unexpected was about to step into its frame. At the corner of 35th Avenue and Crescent Street, nestled between a hardware store and a nail salon, stood Torres Convenience and Candy. Its red awning was slightly faded, its bell above the door stubbornly refusing to ring unless the door was slammed with some force. Inside, the air smelled like peppermint gum and freshly brewed coffee. The bell jangled abruptly. A man in a plain white cassock walked in, followed by a younger one in a dark coat. The older man's silver hair peeked out from under a white zucchetto. He looked around with quiet curiosity, his eyes pausing on each shelf as if deciphering a secret language hidden in snack labels and soda cans. Angela Torres looked up from the counter. Her phone buzzed, ignored. Her eyes narrowed slightly at the sight. The man looked regal, like one of those European aristocrats from documentaries, or a priest, maybe both. Definitely not local. "You lost, Papi?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. The man smiled warmly. "No, just browsing." The younger man, Father Thomas, stood a few feet behind, hands clasped, alert but calm. Leo, for that was the older man's name, moved toward a shelf lined with vintage candy, fingers hovering over a stack of sour belts. Angela tilted her head. "You visiting from Italy or something?" Leo turned to her, eyes twinkling. "Rome, actually." She smirked. "Figures." Just then, a young man with a hoodie and phone in hand walked in. Johnny Morales, a local content creator always hunting for viral moments. He paused, glanced at Leo, then did a double take. His eyes widened. He mouthed silently, "No way." Johnny started recording. Leo, still absorbed in candy contemplation, didn't notice. Angela did. "Hey, don't film customers without asking, bro." Johnny lowered the phone only slightly. "He looks like..." Isn't he? Doesn't matter," she shot back. "Show some respect." Leo turned, finally aware. He looked at Johnny, smiled gently, then picked up a piece of candy. "What do you call this?" "Warhead," Angela said. "It's sour, like nuclear sour." Leo laughed. "Sounds formidable." Johnny grinned. "Try it. Do it on camera." Father Thomas stepped forward, frowning. "Maybe that's not..." But Leo held up a hand. "Why not?" He unwrapped the candy, popped it into his mouth, and winced immediately. His face twisted into a dramatic grimace, then broke into laughter that echoed warmly across the small store. Angela chuckled. "Told you." Johnny's camera was rolling again, catching every second. Leo dabbed his eyes with a handkerchief. "You weren't exaggerating." The atmosphere softened. Angela leaned on the counter, intrigued despite herself. "So what brings you to Queens, huh? You don't exactly blend in." Leo smiled. "Sometimes the best way to see the world is to be seen as no one." Johnny posted the clip with the caption, "Tourist or holy man, you decide. Queens, NYC. Mystery Man." Within minutes, it began to spread. But inside the store, time remained gently suspended. Leo was still just a man savoring a shockingly sour candy in a shop that smelled like peppermint. Angela didn't mind the occasional tourist. She even liked them when they weren't filming everything like they were on safari. But something about this one, this older man in white with kind eyes and a quiet presence, disarmed her usual edge. Johnny, however, was on a different wavelength. He stood outside now, animated, talking into his phone camera. "All right, y'all. I don't know who this guy is, but my abuela would lose her mind. Dude looks like a pope or something. Stay tuned." Inside, Angela placed a small paper bag of candy on the counter and rang it up. "You want a Metro card too, or just the Sugar Rush?" Leo chuckled. "Just the Rush, I think." Father Thomas leaned in. "We should be going soon." Leo nodded but didn't move yet. His eyes were on a shelf of keychains shaped like New York icons: Statue of Liberty, yellow cabs, Empire State Building. He picked one up, flipped it over in his fingers. Angela observed him quietly. "You never been here before, huh?" Only in stories, he replied. Johnny's video, meanwhile, hit a nerve online. Within minutes of uploading, it started gaining traction. The mix of mystery and absurdity was perfect. A man dressed like a religious figure, acting like a curious tourist in Queens. The caption helped. Comments exploded. "That's the Pope, no?" "Nah, some cosplay priest." "My mom swears that's Leo XIV. I'm freaking out. Is this real life or a Netflix teaser? Back in the store, the quiet was starting to crack. Two teenagers peeked in through the glass door, whispering. A man walking his dog paused. Someone across the street raised their phone. Angela noticed the shift. She narrowed her eyes at Johnny, who now stood planted at the corner, narrating. "You brought a circus, great," she muttered. Leo seemed unaffected. People are naturally curious. "Yeah, but curious turns into messy fast," she said, crossing her arms. Father Thomas stepped closer. "We really should leave your whole—" He caught himself, too late. Angela blinked. "Your what?" Leo gave a small shake of the head toward Thomas, then turned to Angela with a soft smile. "I've had many titles in my life. Today I'm just a man who appreciates your hospitality." Angela didn't press further, though the idea simmered in her mind. Something was definitely off. But oddly, she didn't feel lied to. Just left out of a larger story. Outside, more people had gathered. A young couple with a stroller, two guys from the bodega across the street, phones in hands, questions in their eyes. Johnny checked his post again. Already over 10,000 views. Angela exhaled sharply. "Okay, this is getting stupid." Leo approached her, pulled a small leather pouch from his pocket, and placed a neatly folded bill on the counter. "For the candy." "And the conversation." She looked at the money, then up at him. "You're really not from around here." "No," he said. "But people like you make anywhere feel close to home." Angela felt her defenses soften despite herself. Just then the bell rang again. More people stepped inside, curious, eager. Leo glanced toward the door. The room felt smaller now. Angela leaned closer and whispered, "Look, whoever you are, if this turns into a mob scene, you better know how to disappear." Leo smiled gently. "I'll try to keep a low profile." But already outside, the buzz was building. Something strange was happening in Queens, and the world was starting to notice. Officer Melinda Reyes was halfway through her morning patrol when the dispatcher's voice came through her radio, noting minor crowding outside a convenience store in Queens. Nothing urgent, but worth a look. She pulled up in front of Torres Convenience, just as a group of teenagers scrambled to position themselves near the window. She stepped out, adjusting her hat. The crowd was calm, more curious than chaotic. But when her eyes landed on the man inside, standing by the counter in white robes, her breath caught. She had seen that face before. Her abuela kept a framed photo of him on the living room wall, right between the Virgen de Guadalupe and John Paul II, Pope Leo XIV. She blinked hard. It couldn't be. She stepped inside, carefully. "Morning," she said. Angela looked up, visibly tense. "You here to shut this down?" "Just checking it out," Reyes replied, eyes drifting back to the man. "Sir, do you have identification?" Leo met her gaze calmly. "Officer, I understand your concern. I assure you I'm not here to cause trouble." Reyes hesitated. His accent, his manner, even the way he held himself, it was too real, too specific. "Are you him?" Leo offered a small smile. "I am who I've always been. But I ask you to let this moment be simple." Reyes exhaled slowly. She didn't press. Something in his tone settled her instincts. "All right," she said, "but we'll need to keep this quiet. People are starting to recognize you." Leo nodded. "Thank you, officer." Outside, however, the video Johnny posted was no longer confined to the curious few. It had been shared by a mid-tier influencer with 3 million followers who captioned it, "Wait, is this really the Pope in NYC?" The spread became exponential. Screenshots appeared on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. Every platform caught fire. Reactions ranged from reverent to ridiculous. "I'd die if the Pope came to my bodega." Plot twist, he's just a very committed actor. Imagine being so iconic you can't even buy candy without trending. In Rome, the atmosphere could not have been more different. Cardinal Ruffini stared at his tablet in disbelief. The Pope's staff had no record of an official visit to the United States. The image on the screen, however, left little room for doubt. He stood up abruptly, knocking over a glass of water. "Get communications online, now." Back in Queens, Johnny paced excitedly. "He's totally the real deal." "Look at that blessing thing he did with the cop." Angela crossed her arms. "He didn't bless her, he just nodded." Johnny wasn't listening. He was already editing a new clip. Inside the store, Leo picked up a bottle of water and turned to Angela. "It's funny. I've walked through cities all over the world, but very few moments feel as grounded as this." Angela gave him a look. "Yeah, well, Queens isn't exactly the Vatican." "Maybe not," he replied, "but kindness speaks every language." She rolled her eyes, but her lips twitched. "You always this poetic?" "I try." The door opened again. More people came in. A quiet buzz replaced the usual store soundtrack. Leo looked toward Father Thomas. "It's time," Thomas said quietly. Leo didn't argue. He placed the keychain gently on the counter. "For remembrance." Angela took it, unsure why it made her chest tighten slightly. Outside, the hum of the crowd grew louder, phones held higher. Something real had been touched, and the world wanted more. The moment Leo stepped outside, the tone of the air shifted. It was no longer just a curious crowd. It was something charged, anticipatory. Conversations hushed. A sea of phones rose, their lenses capturing every inch of his movement. Some people gasped softly, others whispered, "Is it really him? I saw him online this morning. Why is he here?" Leo paused on the sidewalk. He looked around, eyes gentle, face calm, and lifted his hand, not in grand benediction, but in a simple wave. The kind one gives to neighbors or strangers who feel like friends. A ripple ran through the crowd. Johnny stood front and center, still filming. "There it is, y'all. The wave. That's not a tourist move." People began to press in. Not aggressively, but steadily. They wanted to see him up close, not touch, just see, verify, witness. Officer Reyes moved to intercept, but stopped when Leo gestured subtly. He stepped forward a little more. No fear in his posture, just presence. A boy no older than 10 called out, "Are you really the Pope?" Leo looked directly at him. "I'm someone who believes in love and peace, and you." The boy beamed. From somewhere in the back of the crowd came a cry, "We love you," followed by applause. It spread like a wave, uncertain at first, then swelling into a full crescendo of spontaneous appreciation. In that moment, Leo turned to Father Thomas. "This wasn't a mistake," he said quietly. Thomas nodded, still unsure whether to smile or panic. News vans pulled up. Reporters jumped out with microphones, drones buzzed overhead. The image of Leo standing serenely in the middle of a busy Queens sidewalk, surrounded by locals and flashing cameras, became instantly iconic. The world had caught up to the moment. Leo raised both hands, not in silence this time, but in invitation. When the crowd settled again, he began to speak, his voice clear but unamplified. "I came here with no plan, no entourage, no intention of being known. I came to feel the pulse of a city I'd only read about, to walk streets where every voice matters. And what I found in a candy shop no bigger than a chapel was humanity." The crowd leaned in. A woman who treats every guest with dignity, a child who asks without fear, a stranger who simply watches. These are not small things. These are the heart of everything. A few people wiped their eyes. Others recorded with trembling hands. Leo continued, "It is easy to speak to millions from balconies and cathedrals. It is harder and more beautiful to be one of many, to stand quietly in the current of daily life and let it carry you." The street was silent, save for the faint sound of traffic blocks away. Even the reporters had lowered their microphones. Father Thomas, watching, understood then. This was Leo's purpose all along, not just a break from routine or protocol, but a demonstration, a lesson, a parable lived. And somehow, no microphone, no translation, no title could have made the message more powerful than this raw, unscripted moment in the cold air of Queens. Leo's voice softened. Thank you for letting me be nobody today." He stepped back. The crowd parted, not forced but drawn by reverence. People let him pass with gentle smiles and murmured blessings in a dozen languages. The silence that followed him was the kind only truth could leave behind. The next morning, the streets of Queens returned to their usual rhythm. Traffic groaned, horns blared, and the scent of bagels mixed with exhaust. But something lingered, an echo of presence, as if the sidewalk still remembered. Leo and Father Thomas boarded their flight without incident. No special treatment, no announcement. Just two men in line heading home. Angela found the store exactly as she'd left it, minus the keychain, which she'd tucked into a drawer for safekeeping. She turned the sign to open, brewed coffee, and braced for questions. But surprisingly, most customers didn't press. Some smiled a little longer than usual. A few left notes on napkins. "Thank you for yesterday." 3 days later, a small box arrived by courier. No return address. Inside, a letter handwritten in flawless penmanship and a simple gold medallion bearing the crest of the Vatican. "To Angela, for your kindness without condition, your humor without hesitation, and your ability to see a man before his title. With gratitude, Leo." She stared at the letter for a long time before sliding it back into the envelope. She didn't tell anyone. Instead, she took a photo from the security footage, Leo at the counter, holding the sour candy with a wide-eyed grin, and pinned it behind the register. "Tourist of the Year," she wrote on a post-it. In Rome, Cardinal Ruffini faced the cameras with tight composure. "His Holiness is safe, well, and has returned. The Vatican acknowledges the unique circumstances of his visit to New York." No further questions at this time. Privately, however, the Cardinal fumed. Protocol had been obliterated, but public sentiment was glowing. Editorials praised Leo's humility. Faith communities felt reinvigorated. Even secular circles admired the gesture. And then Leo released a personal message through Vatican channels titled "The Gift of Being Unseen." In it, he spoke softly. "We live in a world that demands recognition. We dress for approval, speak for attention, act for applause. But sometimes the truest parts of ourselves emerge only when no one is watching." The message, only 3 minutes long, was watched over 100 million times in its first week. Johnny Morales, meanwhile, found himself transformed. The video made him rich, sure, but it also pulled him towards something he hadn't expected: purpose. He started a new series interviewing unnoticed people, bus drivers, janitors, street musicians. He called it Everyday Icons. His first episode? Angela Torres. She didn't say much on camera, just smiled, held up the gold medallion, and pointed to the security photo. "He made me laugh, that's all I needed." Tour groups started visiting the shop. She sold keychains now, not the plastic ones. Brass ones, engraved with the words "seen by nobody, known by everyone." As for Leo, he resumed his duties, spoke to world leaders, visited countries in conflict, led masses for thousands, but those closest to him noticed something new, an extra gentleness in his voice, a lingering pause before grand ceremonies, as if remembering that morning in Queens. One night, before a closed-door meeting, he turned to Father Thomas. "Do you think they understood?" Thomas nodded. "I think they felt it. That matters more." Leo smiled. Then it was worth it. And perhaps it was. Not because it reshaped the church or history or headlines, but because for one quiet morning, the sacred walked among the ordinary, and everyone recognized something holy in themselves. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable true stories. And click on the video now showing on your screen to discover the next incredible journey waiting for you.